Welcome to Homeschooling Outside the Box, the podcast that encourages and equips moms who homeschool an outside-the-box child. Hey there, I'm Cindy Renna, and this is episode 16. Today we are going to talk about being normal. Well, in other words, we're going to talk about finding your new normal, because I'm willing to bet a lot of people who listen to this show in particular are not used to considering themselves quote-unquote normal. Let me run you through a scenario here. The tests have been done, the evaluation's complete, diagnosis announced, prognosis assumed. Your child has fill in the blank. I'm sure a lot of you listening have had that situation happen to you where your child has received a diagnosis. And even if they don't have a formal diagnosis, you've had enough experiences to know that normal isn't typically a good way to describe your family. For those of us who have had that talk with the professionals and received that diagnosis, we realize all of a sudden we're forced to flip our lives upside down to better understand it. It's like somebody takes your rose-colored glasses and exchanges them for a pair of lenses that expose you to a blinding light. The life that you thought your child would have suddenly starts to melt away like a sandcastle battered by the waves, and it hurts. I've sat through 2 of those evaluations where at the end of it, I was told that my child has, and both times were autism. Our 3rd child doesn't have a formal diagnosis, but we've been to enough counseling sessions where it kind of had the same effect. And it does. It hurts. It would be a lie to say that it doesn't hurt because there's an expert telling you what will or will not be true for your child. It may feel as if somebody has flipped to the last chapter of your child's story and rewrote the ending. So the question is, after you have that meeting, how do you cope with that? Well, you have a decision to make. I'm going to illustrate with a story. Now, I cannot take credit for the story. I did not make it up, and I apologize. I feel ashamed, especially as a writer, that I don't have anybody to credit this story with, but let me tell it anyway and ask forgiveness. So there's 2 shoe salesmen, and they went to a country where nobody had ever heard of shoes. So the first salesman writes home saying to his wife, "This is terrible. Nobody here wears shoes. I'm coming home." So the second salesman writes home to his wife and he says, "This is fantastic. Nobody here wears shoes. I'm going to make a fortune." Okay, same situation, same circumstances, different perspective. Why? Why did the first salesman give up almost as soon as he started? And why did the second salesman see so much opportunity? The answer is the same: hope. So the first salesman had none of it. The second salesman had an abundance. Hope is a feeling of expectation. It's an anticipation of a certain outcome. It's the silver lining that allows us to go on in a world with so much trouble. Without it, we are doomed. With it, we can do just about anything. This is not some pie-in-the-sky, rah-rah, motivational speech. I'm not promising you that you can reach the moon or do anything you set your heart to. I am telling you very plainly that if you do not have a hope for your child's future, you will spend your days depressed and in vain. When your child receives a life-changing diagnosis, hope is your antidote. So you can choose to look at your challenges as absolute roadblocks or perplexing mind benders. You can ask, "Why me?" Or you can ask, "Now what?" The decision to be paralyzed with fear or invigorated with perseverance is up to you, my friend. But that's the long road. So let's talk about the steps that you take to get there. Process it at home. The first thing that you need to do after that appointment, and this is the first thing we did after that appointment so many years ago. I think it's been 9 years since Benjamin was first diagnosed. The first thing you need to do is just go ahead and accept that this is a season of transition and a very difficult one. Grieve it. It's okay. Don't bury it. But at some point, you are going to need to see this as your new normal and embrace the fractured blessings that come with it. Adopt a minimal schedule or even take a few weeks off to sort through it all. If you homeschool, this is one of those times that you need to cash in on the flexibility that is so prized for. And as for the information, your brain can only hold so much. So you've got to decide what is most pressing right now. Figure out what's most pressing and then do that. Once you get a handle on that a bit, then you can move on to something else. All right, for instance, you've got to narrow down your treatment options. Especially if your child is diagnosed with autism, you are going to be nailed with many different roads that people are encouraging you to take. So you've got to decide on the course of action that you want to start with, and only one. This is very, very important. Do not start 3 therapies at the same time, okay? For your sanity, for your child's happiness, and just so you can track what's actually working and what's not, I really, really encourage you to pick one thing that you want to start with. Okay, so you find out about Sunrise. Sunrise is so great. I love Sunrise. I'm always talking about it. You can listen to episode 2 if you want to know what in the world is she talking about. That is our main backbone therapy. We also do biomedical therapy. I love that. We've seen tons of progress from it. We did speech therapy for a while. We've done brain balance therapy with some of the core exercises. We've done brain training, talked about brain training with Cindy West on episode 15 on the last podcast episode. So there's all these great, great therapies that we have integrated into our lives, but we did not start those all at the same time. This is very, very important. It's a layering approach. Okay, so let's say you're going to start with Sunrise. You pursue that until you decide if it's a fit for your family, and only after that, only after you're committed and you've got a handle on what it is, how it works, then you can start something new if you want. Basically, you are going to have to drown out the noise and choose only the path that is right for your family right now. So by choosing one therapy and not choosing another, you're not saying we're not going to ever go gluten-free. We're not going to ever change our diet or add supplements. We're not going to ever look at speech resources. You're not saying that. You're saying this is what we're going to do right now. And then you leave that door open for later. Okay, as for your relationship with your child, try to stay positive. Grieve this with your spouse and on your own. Share your worries, anxieties, fears, sadness with those who are closest to you, and then lay them at God's feet. But with your child, you've got to be his strong tower. Help him to focus on gratitude too. Remind him that although he has no control over what's happening to him, some of the challenges that he is going to face, he has absolute control over how he chooses to respond to it. And that's for you too, Mama. All right, so once you kind of have a handle on the inside of your world, now we've got to prepare for the outside of your world. When you have a child diagnosed with something, be it autism, ADHD, sensory processing disorder, or whatever, you will no doubt hear some variation of these words along the way. But what is normal anyway? There's really no such thing. Now, the people speaking these words are usually doing so out of a really good place. They want to make you feel included in a world that does not understand your family. They want to connect with you. Oftentimes, they're attempting to soften some sort of blow. You know this because these words are usually spoken in conjunction with your child doing something very abnormal. But let me be blunt here. There is such a thing as normal, and you're not it. That might sound shocking, but it shouldn't. If you're reading this, I think you already knew that. You know that your life doesn't look, feel, or function like most of your friends' lives. Your child acts differently. Your child has special friends known as therapists. You may eat differently. You have different boundaries than other families do. Your child may take a slew of supplements every morning in addition to a normal multivitamin. You, my friend, and your family are not normal. Normal is dropping your child off at summer day camp and then just leaving. Normal is signing up for T-ball without a 30-minute how-to briefing on interacting with your child. Normal is going out for ice cream without inspecting every last ingredient on the treat. Normal is not thinking twice about the sensory effects of Christmas morning. These are things taken for granted by normal families. You, like me, dear, do not have that luxury. Denying it is not going to change it. But in the great words of Dr. Seuss, why fit in when you were born to stand out? Friend, the only way you are going to find peace is by embracing your new normal. Okay, so how do you do that? Stop reading parenting books that weren't written for you. Stop asking advice from friends who do not have the same challenges as you do. Stop eating the same standard American diet and trying to get a healthy kid out of it. Stop trying to fit a square peg into a round hole. Stop weighing your losses instead of counting your gains. Stop thinking only the experts can help and equip yourself because you are your child's best advocate. Stop hiding the truth of your circumstances for fear of rejection. Stop beating yourself up because normal isn't working for your family. Stop it and move forward instead. Break free and forget normal. Because it is when you do this that you can begin to help your child. I'd like to invite you to head over to the Facebook page, cindyrenna.com. You can find some other families who are not normal. Join the conversation. Come talk to us about books and Charlotte Mason and therapies and all sorts of fun things. That wraps it up for this episode of Homeschooling Outside the Box. Thanks for listening, and I'll talk with you soon.